If you're over 60 and a park ranger suggests a different trail than the one you planned, don't take it personally. They're not underestimating you. They might actually be saving your life. Every single year, National Park Search and Rescue teams respond to thousands of calls, and a disproportionate number involve hikers over the age of 55 who chose trails that looked manageable on paper but turned brutal in practice. Rangers have seen this pattern so many times that they've developed an almost instinctive ability to match visitors with the right trails. And today, you're going to learn exactly how they do it. Let's start with the question you're probably already asking. What makes a trail genuinely harder for an older hiker versus a younger one? The answer isn't just fitness, it's physiology. As you age, your body handles heat less efficiently. Your balance systems become slightly less responsive. Your joints, particularly your knees and ankles, absorb impact differently. And your cardiovascular system recovers more slowly from sudden exertion. None of this means you can't hike. It means the variables that matter most on a trail shift as you get older. Rangers evaluate trail difficulty for older visitors using a mental checklist that goes far beyond the simple, easy, moderate, and strenuous labels you see on trailhead signs. They're looking at least 5 key factors. First, elevation gain per mile. Total elevation gain gets all the attention, but what really matters is how that gain is distributed. A trail that climbs 800 feet over 4 miles is a completely different animal than one that climbs 800 feet in a single mile. Rangers know that sustained steep grades are where older hikers run into trouble because your heart rate spikes and stays elevated without recovery time. Second, surface footing. Loose gravel, exposed tree roots, uneven rock slabs, these surfaces demand constant micro-adjustments from your ankles and knees. For a 25-year-old, that's barely noticeable. For someone with reduced proprioception or early arthritis, it's exhausting and dramatically increases fall risk. Rangers will often steer older visitors toward trails with compacted dirt, paved sections, or well-maintained boardwalks. Third, shade availability. This one surprises people, but it's critical. A fully exposed trail in Zion during July can push surface temperatures above 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Older bodies regulate temperature less effectively, and dehydration sets in faster. Rangers factor in how much tree canopy or canyon wall shade a trail provides, especially during peak sun hours between 10 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. Fourth, access to rest points. Are there benches along the route, flat shaded areas where you can sit and recover? Or is the trail a relentless march with nowhere comfortable to pause? Rangers know that strategic rest stops aren't a luxury for older hikers. They're a necessity that can mean the difference between a great day and a medical emergency. And fifth, proximity to trailhead and emergency access. If something goes wrong 200 yards from the parking lot, help arrives in minutes. If it goes wrong 4 miles into a canyon with no cell service, you're looking at a helicopter evacuation that could take hours. Rangers weigh this proximity factor heavily when making recommendations. So with all of that in mind, let's talk about specific trails at some of America's most popular parks that deliver absolutely jaw-dropping experiences without demanding extreme physical output. Let's start with Zion National Park. The trail most people want to do is Angel's Landing. And honestly, if you're over 60 and not in exceptional shape, that is not the trail for you. The chain section alone involves significant exposure and grip strength that can be dangerous for anyone, regardless of age. Instead, rangers consistently recommend the Riverside Walk. It's a paved, mostly flat trail that follows the Virgin River for about 2 miles round trip. You're walking between towering canyon walls that glow red and orange in the afternoon light. It's wheelchair accessible for most of its length, and the views are genuinely world-class. Another excellent option is the Canyon Overlook Trail. It's about a mile round trip with modest elevation gain, and it ends at a viewpoint that rivals anything you'd see from Angel's Landing. The footing requires some care in a few spots, but overall, it's manageable for most older hikers who take their time. Now, Bryce Canyon. This park is stunning, but it sits at over 8,000 feet of elevation, which means the air has noticeably less oxygen. Rangers see older visitors underestimate this constantly. The rim trail between Sunrise Point and Sunset Point is about 1 mile, mostly paved and relatively flat. You get those iconic views of the Orange Hoodoo formations stretching out below you in every direction. If you want to descend into the canyon, the Queen's Garden Trail is the least strenuous option, dropping about 320 feet over less than a mile. Just remember, you have to climb back out, and at that altitude, the return trip will feel significantly harder than the descent. Shenandoah National Park offers a completely different experience. The trails here wind through dense Appalachian forest, and the footing tends to be more forgiving. Rangers love recommending Dark Hollow Falls, which is about a 1.5 mile round trip to a beautiful 70-foot waterfall. The trail is well maintained, but does have some steeper sections on the return. For something even gentler, the Limberlost Trail is a 1.3-mile loop on a crushed greenstone surface that's accessible and passes through a gorgeous old-growth hemlock forest. And of course, many of the best views in Shenandoah require zero hiking at all. Skyline Drive has over 70 overlooks where you can simply park and take in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Before we continue, if you're finding this useful, take a second to hit that subscribe button for National Park Secrets. We dig into the insider knowledge that most visitors never hear about, from ranger recommendations to hidden trails to the best times to visit every major park. Subscribe now so you don't miss what's coming next. Now let's talk about one of the biggest problems rangers encounter, which is how older hikers misread trail difficulty ratings. Here's the thing. Those easy, moderate, and strenuous labels were not designed with 65-year-olds in mind. They were created as general guidelines, often calibrated for a reasonably fit adult in their 30s or 40s. A trail rated moderate might assume you can handle 800 feet of elevation gain without stopping, that you have strong ankles for rocky terrain, and that you can sustain a pace of about 2 miles per hour. Older hikers frequently make 3 specific overestimation mistakes. The first is anchoring to past performance. You hiked the Grand Canyon rim to rim when you were 45, so surely you can handle a moderate trail now. But your body at 65 is not the same body. Cardiovascular capacity, joint flexibility, and recovery speed have all changed, sometimes dramatically. The second mistake is ignoring altitude effects. If you live at sea level and you're hiking at 7,000 or 8,000 feet, your effective fitness drops significantly. Your blood carries less oxygen per breath, your heart works harder, and fatigue arrives much sooner. This effect intensifies with age. The third mistake is underestimating cumulative fatigue. The first mile feels fine. The second mile feels okay. By mile 3, you're tired but committed. By mile 4, you're in trouble, and you still have to get back. Rangers call this the turnaround problem, and it's the single most common pattern in overexertion incidents involving older hikers. Speaking of overexertion, let's cover the warning signs you absolutely cannot ignore. Dizziness or lightheadedness, especially when standing up or changing position. Chest tightness or pain, even mild. An irregular heartbeat or a heart rate that feels like it won't come down even after resting. Nausea that comes on suddenly during exertion. Excessive sweating that suddenly stops, which can indicate your body's cooling system is failing. Confusion or disorientation, even slight. And cramping in your legs that doesn't resolve with stretching and hydration. If you experience any of these, stop immediately. Find shade, sit or lie down, drink water, and do not try to push through. The trail will be there tomorrow. You might not be if you ignore what your body is telling you. Let's end with practical advice that can genuinely extend your hiking life by years, maybe even decades. First, hiking poles. If you take away one thing from this video, let it be this. Trekking poles reduce the impact on your knees by up to 25% on descents. They improve your balance on uneven terrain. They give you 2 extra points of contact with the ground, and they help you maintain an upright posture that keeps your breathing efficient. They are the single best investment an older hiker can make. Second, pacing. Adopt what experienced hikers call the rest step technique. On steep sections, pause briefly with each step, locking your rear knee so your skeleton, not your muscles, supports your weight for a fraction of a second. This micro rest dramatically reduces fatigue over long climbs. Third, hydrate before you're thirsty. By the time you feel thirst, you're already mildly dehydrated. Aim for about half a liter of water per hour of hiking, more in hot or high altitude conditions. Bring electrolyte tablets too, because water alone won't replace the sodium and potassium you lose through sweat. Fourth, plan for the return trip. Whatever trail you choose, set a turnaround time, not just a turnaround point. If you plan to be back at the car by 2 in the afternoon, work backward from that. And remember, the return trip almost always takes longer than you think, especially if it involves climbing. Fifth, talk to the rangers. Seriously, walk into that visitor center. Tell them your age, your fitness level, any medical conditions, and what kind of experience you want. They do this all day, every day. They know which trails are in good condition right now, where the shade is, where the water stations are, and which viewpoints will make your jaw drop without making your knees scream. The national parks belong to everyone, at every age. The goal isn't to do the hardest trail. The goal is to stand somewhere impossibly beautiful and feel grateful that places like this still exist. Rangers understand that, and their recommendations aren't limitations. They're invitations to have the best day possible. If this video helped you think differently about your next park visit, give it a like and subscribe to National Park Secrets. We're here to help you get the most out of every trip to America's greatest landscapes. Share this with someone you love who's planning a park adventure, and we'll see you on the trail.